I was watching Christopher Hitchens on Bill Maher one time. This was back in, 2005, 2006, can't remember. But it was during the Iraq War. And I was a little bit of a fan of Christopher Hitchens. I read a couple of his books. Read the one on Thomas Paine, which was really good. Just kind of a, almost like a monogram, just a very short biography of Thomas Paine. Hitchens was a big fan of. Hitchens, famously was an atheist. So was Thomas Paine. I can't remember the other book I read of Christopher's. It wasn't God Is Not Great. But I used to read Christopher's articles too, and Christopher, was very liberal, but he was sharp and he was funny, very clever, as they say in England. But anyway, he was on Bill Maher, and some fat Democrat congressman was on there who used to be a Marine. I can't remember that guy's name, but he was, just like an arch liberal, bordering on, no exaggeration, bordering on being a communist, because he was one of those old boomer liberals who were like communists, basically. They actually were. But the question came up of President George W. Bush's intelligence, and Christopher, who was an American citizen by that point, I think, really took it to Maher and the audience and that fat congressman. And you can look it up on YouTube. It's a great clip. It's when he flips off the audience and says, F you. But Christopher says on it, he says to that fat congressman, in response to him saying Bush is stupid, basically, Christopher said, and this kind of upset Bill, because Bill and Christopher were good buddies, little atheist cabal they had going. But Hitchens said, something to the effect of, every late night talk show host does it. Every comic does it. There's nobody who can't do it. The President Bush is stupid joke. There's nobody who can't do it. And it's the joke that stupid people laugh at. People who want to think that they're smarter than the president, who aren't smarter than the president. Oh, the president's so stupid, yet he's surrounded himself with all of these Straussian philosophers, right? You can go look up Strauss, that school of thought. But, Chris was really referencing, probably more than anybody else, Paul Wolfowitz, who of course is a neocon, like the great neocon, baby. A Francis Fukuyama school of neoconservatism. And Christopher said, I went to Oxford with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was, known, or is known, to be very intelligent. Clinton went to Oxford because he was a Rhodes Scholar. So a Rhodes Scholarship is when an American college student gets to go to study at Oxford. So it's very prestigious. And Bill Clinton was the first Arkansan that was a Rhodes Scholar ever. The second one was General Wesley Clark, who, had been the commander-in-chief of NATO. And there was a third one, I can't remember that guy's name, but he was a little bit older than me. I'm high school class of 2001. But, all three of these guys are really smart. But anyway, Christopher said, I went to Oxford with Bill Clinton. And Bill Clinton would change his mind according to the last expert he talked to or the last book that he read. President Bush knows one big thing, which is that these people, meaning terrorists, are our enemies and they mean us harm. Boo and jeer all you like. If you're not a person who knows a lot of Greek stories, like from ancient Greece, that reference is missed on you. But what Christopher was referencing is an old Greek proverb, and there's some variations of it, but the gist of it is, the fox knows many tricks. The hedgehog knows one trick. The implication being that, the hedgehog is the real expert, right? The hedgehog is the smart one. He's the master, the undisputed master of one thing. And so that's kind of what Christopher was saying there. The Greeks used that sort of in reference to, or it was kind of associated with ancient Sparta. The famous scene in 300 where Leonidas says, Spartans, what's your profession? And they all do the infantryman grunt. Ugh, we're all soldiers. And then Leonidas says, see, I brought more soldiers than you did. The reason why I bring that up is because I was just looking on the Drudge Report, because Drudge is spook central for Beltway bullshit now. And it had a headline about Tucker Carlson saying the CIA is going to arrest him. I haven't watched Tucker in a couple of weeks because the show headlines, or the titles of his episodes, I guess, look to be pretty anti-Trump. And there's this thing that libertarians are doing, and it is a midwit, middle-brained response to geopolitics, in my estimation, akin to the George W. Bush is stupid meme that we were inundated with as a country for 8 years. Of course, it was Bush is stupid, but also Bush is Hitler. Well, which is it? Is Hitler stupid? Was Hitler stupid? He got to be the uncontested ruler, supreme ruler of Germany. Is he stupid? Not saying he's good. Not even close, right? I'm not one of those. But is he stupid? Well, which is it? So, the new George W. Bush is stupid type thing is, and this might get censored, is the Jews. It's the Jews. Trump is going to war because of the Jews. Like, these libertarians, how old are you people? Have just discovered that Jews, Jewish people, happen to be in prominent positions of finance, Hollywood, courts, etc. And obviously that means that they're in control of everything, right? Now, on the other side, you've got the weirdos like Ted Cruz who are Christian Zionists. I am not a Zionist. I mean, I guess I am a little bit. That the Jewish people, do have a country. They have a homeland, I guess. And, as a Christian, as an American, I believe that people innately have a right to defend themselves. I'm not excusing any sort of prejudices or, persecutions, I guess you might say, that the Israeli government does against Palestinian Christians. Far from it. That should be called out and condemned. But both sides, the weirdo Ted Cruz's, and there's lots of them, and the libertarians like Thomas Massey, both sides are making the same mistake, which is to make it a dichotomy. And confusing Jewishness, Judaism, with the state of Israel. Right? Obviously, the state of Israel is not what's referenced in the Bible when Jesus or David or whomever else says Israel, says the word Israel, right? That's a man's name. If you want to get really specific, that's a guy's name. It's the name of a prophet. That's Jacob's name. Jacob is named Israel after he wrestles with the angel. But then, of course, it becomes the name for the people, of the worshipers of Jehovah or Yahweh, or as we believe as Orthodox Christians, the worshipers of Christ. But they're confusing those two things. Both sides are. The United States can act in its own interest, in the interest of other allies. And that action in the interest of those various allies can also include us taking action that benefits Israel as well. But the libertarians will make a pretty bad, fallacious leap in saying that anything that is done in the interest of Israel, the state, is something that America has been duped or, sort of massaged into, and we're unwittingly doing their bidding. It is, at best, a sophomoric position to have. Do you really think that Israel, a small country, is making Donald Trump do something? Really? That is something that would be totally unique in the history of the earth. The United States, the greatest power in the world, the biggest, most powerful military in the world, is being dominated and hoodwinked and deceived by a country of how many people live there? A few million, We have states that are way bigger. But Israel hates Iran. America attacked Iran. Therefore, America is attacking Iran for Israel. Totally losing sight of the reality that Arab countries, obviously painting with a very broad brush, Arab countries hate Iran too. And just as I had seen that Tucker article about Tucker saying the CIA is going to arrest him, there's the picture of MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, encouraging the USA to continue to bomb. Yeah, how about that? It's in Saudi Arabia's interest for us to continue to bomb them. But in doing that, in acknowledging that hurts the anti-Semite crowd. That damages their ability to beat the anti-Jewish drum. And I'm not necessarily pro-Jewish. I'm pro-Christian. I'm pro-American. I'm for my country. But just because I'm for my country doesn't mean I'm automatically against other countries. But it being pro-America, which sounds almost stupid to say, how could you even have to say that? I believe that if the United States gets into a war, for whatever reason it is, we have to win the war. No matter what it takes. Because losing is an alternative that we don't want to contemplate. We have to win if the fighting has started.